Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. I'm John Voorhees, and with me as always is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, Mr. Voorhees. How are you?
I am doing very well, thank you. You know what? It is Friday. We're actually recording this a little bit earlier than that, but it's Friday. I'll say it's Friday because it feels like a Friday because we got news this day of WWDC. And we know a little bit more. We don't know everything, but we know a little bit more.
We know some at this point. I think it's not bad. I won't complain. We have some facts.
Well, we know a lot more than we did a couple of days ago, where all we knew was a start day, that there was going to be a keynote, and then it would be a week-long event. Now we know about some of the details that we'll be saying throughout the week. And Ryan had a story on the site this week, so you can go there and see an overview of that. But there's going to be one-on-one labs that will be done online, as well as new forums for developers, sessions being posted every day at 10 a.m. Pacific. The keynote on Monday will be at 10 a.m. Pacific, and at 2 Pacific in the afternoon will be the State of the Union. So we know we're going to have a State of the Union. What else? Am I missing anything? I think those are the highlights.
Yeah, the developer forums, and those are the highlights. There's going to be a keynote. There's going to be a State of the Union. It's not clear if we're going to have Apple Design Awards or not, but I don't think Apple announces those beforehand. I think if they happen, they may be happening behind just closed doors. Well, in this case, virtual closed doors. And then later we'll probably see those winners on the Apple website. But yeah, I mean, you can expect a lot from us during WWDC week because we are not on location. We are in front of our computers, which means we have more time than usual because we don't have to physically attend sessions or go to social gatherings and that kind of stuff, which means we have planned a special week at MacStories and AppStories. There's going to be a lot of content. We're going to follow the sessions. We're going to talk about those sessions. There's going to be a lot more coming from us than usual this year, which should be fun, should be different. But hey, it's a virtual WWDC, so it's got to be different.
Yes, it's going to be an all-work week for us, which is kind of too bad. I do enjoy the social part of it, but there's always that tug and pull of the social events and trying to get all your work done in order to get to those when you're in San Jose. And this year, we'll just be at home, like you said. So we've got a lot of extra content that we're working on, and it should be a whole lot of fun. You know, the big story that we published this week, probably the biggest one, was your story, Federico, on custom perspectives in OmniFocus. Tell me a little bit about what that is all about, because I know you've been using OmniFocus kind of on the QT for a while, but for several months now.
Mm-hmm. What does on the QT mean? Is that an American expression?
Quietly.
I see. That's. I gotta add that to my repertoire of American expressions. So yes, I have written this story about how I'm using custom perspectives in OmniFocus, especially on the iPhone and iPad. And I have this collection of perspectives which are custom views, and they're all powered by the MacStories perspective icons, which we launched a couple of weeks ago. They're still available with a launch price at a discount. So go check them out if you haven't. And the idea was to explain how I'm taking advantage of filters that allow you to put together these very personalized and advanced views in OmniFocus. So I have shared the details, for example, of how I'm going to manage the iOS 14 review and the different perspectives that I've created for that. And I also explain how I differentiate between tasks that I want to see right now, tasks that are available to me right now, that have a due date and that maybe are happening soon, like over the next 24 hours, versus tasks that I save in the app that have a due date in the future, but that also have a deferred date, which means I can only worry about them later. I don't have to see them right now. That's one of the big features of OmniFocus. One of the big ideas behind the app is some things you have to do at some point in the future, but maybe you don't want to see them right now. And I found that understanding that system and building perspectives for that system has really helped not feeling anxiety whenever I look at my task list.
Right.
So the idea of just open my task manager, show me things that I can do right now, and the things that I gotta do in September, I'll take a look at them in August. It's not necessary to take a look at those in June. So in the article I share all the details and screenshots of how exactly I put these perspectives together.
Wow, it's a great article, and I think if someone hasn't used OmniFocus before or used it in the past and maybe didn't stick for some reason, this article is a good way to understand one of the more unique aspects of that app and how it might work for you in task management. I know it certainly has done that for me. I did a story this week on a brand new Read It Later app called GoodLinks that I want to talk about, because this is not just a really exciting kind of great app that I really enjoy, but it feels to me like a good example of a new generation of apps that we're starting to see on the App Store that are built around and from the ground up with the most modern technologies available in iOS and iPadOS. You know, things like CloudKit syncing and multi-windowing and all the other things that we talk about a lot here in AppStories. And I've really fallen in love with this app. I mean, it's a Read It Later service. We haven't seen a lot of new Read It Later services until very recently, when a whole new crop of this category has sprung up around some of these new technologies. But this one is one of my favorite of the bunch because it has things like tagging. And here, I find tagging to be really useful in this context because sometimes something doesn't fit particularly well in one category. And by giving it a couple of different tags, I can kind of slice and dice things and look at different sets of articles in different ways. Plus, on top of that, there's a ton of automation built into this app. It has a long list of shortcut actions. It has its own URL scheme, and it even has a custom action editor that allows you to hook into the URL schemes of other apps. So there's a lot you can do there. This is from the creator of OneWriter, which people may have heard of. That's a text editor, and in fact was my first text editor when I started writing at MacStories. So it's an excellent app. Go check it out. I've got a long review of it that includes 2 shortcuts and a custom action. And we're going to talk about the club in a minute, but Federico has also created a shortcut for GoodLinks that he shared with club members.
Yes, I created a shortcut that actually works both for GoodLinks and Reeder.
Nice.
If you use Reeder with the Read Later mode. It's a shortcut that allows you to pick your articles, your unread articles, by topic instead of just by looking at a long list, which again, every time I open the list, it kind of makes me anxious because I realize, I've saved way too many links. I'm never going to get to any of these. And also, sometimes when I want to read something, I'm often in the mood for a very specific type of story I want to read. Like maybe sometimes I'm like, I want to read something about music. Or maybe I could go for a video game review now. And that shortcut is meant to do exactly this, to let you browse your unread queue by topic and then choose from articles that belong to that topic. And it works both for Reeder and for the new GoodLinks app.
Yeah, it's a great shortcut. You know, we should also mention a review that Ryan did this week of Pastel, which is an app from Steve Troughton Smith. Yep. It is a color utility. You can create palettes of colors. You can copy the various codes for those colors, whether that's something like Swift UI or the hex representation, all those sorts of things. It works on the iPhone and the iPad. I have only played with a little bit, but one of the things that's really neat about it is it has drag and drop support for colors. So certain apps allow you to drag color palettes into them. Yeah. Things like MindNode, and Pastel lets you do that. And so it's a kind of a neat way to do that, to create a color palette that you like a lot and then use it in various places.
Yeah. Even Pages and the iWork apps, they support drag and drop for colors, which is a very specific drag and drop feature that developers need to support. And thankfully, you can do that. Ryan has some examples of like dropping colors into specific charts in numbers. Like super fun to change the colors. Very nicely done. I want to mention Sofa, another Ryan review. Ryan is he actually is always reviewed Sofa on MacStories. Sofa is a media tracker and like a sort of like a wish list / tracker. It lets you collect movies, TV shows that you want to watch, or video games that you want to play, podcasts, books, all kinds of media. Lets you organize them in collections. And when you're done, this is awful, but consuming them, whatever the activity is going to be, you can mark them as done, and you have a log of things you've watched or played or read. And so you can see when exactly you've done something in the app. Sofa was really an excellent app on the iPhone, but now it's on the iPad as well. And the developer took their time to support all the great stuff in the modern iPadOS experience. So multi-windowing, split view, slide over, keyboard shortcuts, trackpad integration, context menus, iCloud sync. It's got it all, and it works really, really well on the iPad. And the best part of the Sofa update is that the app is free to download, but you can now support development directly by purchasing themes. And what's really nice here is that this is actually a feature that I would like more developers to implement. There's a very extensive theme preview system that in the Sofa settings, you see like a very accurate preview of what the app is going to look like, and you can test a theme for a few seconds, and then you can decide to purchase the theme. It's very nicely done, and there are also a lot more, a lot of new customizable icons for the home screen, so that's very nice. And just broadly speaking, Sofa looks great. Like the UI design, super elegant. It works really nicely. I love the fact that you can search for video games, and there's a built-in online catalog for video games that you can add to your collection. Very nicely done. This has to be one of my favorite media utilities, which is kind of perfect for Unwind because, we have media picks on the show. So Sofa is definitely one of my favorite utilities lately on the iPhone, and now the iPad as well, which is great.
Yeah, I'm really glad to see that this is on the iPad now. It was great on the iPhone, but having it on the iPad just means that it's available more often when I need it. I cover a lot of the Adobe apps on MacStories, and this week Adobe came out with an app called Photoshop Camera, which is a camera app that has live filters built into it. This is designed primarily for like Instagram and other social media sharing, and it's built around Adobe's Sensei artificial intelligence engine, which is in a bunch of their different apps. But here it's really front and center as a way to make taking good-looking photographs really super simple. And I've been playing with it. Some of the filters, they call them lenses, are maybe a little over the top. Putting a planet in the sky above your house or something when you take a picture of your house. But other ones, like just importing, you could take pictures with it, but you could also import from your photo library or Lightroom and things. And just importing a photo of a landscape, it would automatically adjust the picture to make it look nicer, and then also suggest lenses by highlighting the ones that were designed for scenery. And so it's a great way to quickly get a good-looking picture and then share it. So it's worth a look. It's free. It comes with some storage, and I think it's a way for Adobe both to continue testing their artificial intelligence engine, maybe collect some data for that engine to refine it, and also start maybe nudging people towards things like Lightroom and Photoshop Express on the iPad and on the iPhone.
We also received an announcement from Apple saying that both iTunes U and iBooks Author will be discontinued. This does not come as a huge surprise considering the lack of attention to both products that we've seen over the past few years. iBooks Author is the Mac application that allowed you to design and create interactive ebooks for what used to be called iBooks. Now it's just called the Books app. Apple is saying that some of the missing features from iBooks Author will be integrated in Pages, which is good to know. I really liked iBooks Author, and I always thought that it was a shame that Apple did not, continue to update the app and maybe even make an iPad version. So if this means that Pages on iPad will continue to receive features for book layouts and designing interactive ebooks, I think this is great news, and I really want to see what Apple does on this front. And iTunes U, Apple's saying that they're going to focus their efforts for education on schoolwork and classroom, which are two separate apps and services. So again, that makes sense. We also saw just toward the end of last week, I believe, Apple releasing an open source project for developers of third-party password managers. So the idea would be that Apple has shared basically resources for third-party password managers in the form of like site-specific informations like login URLs or lists of websites that support specific features for password managers. It's basically Apple sharing some of the knowledge behind iCloud Kitchen with third-party developers of password managers, which I think it's great news, and it's nice to see Apple doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on over to the club really quickly. We already mentioned the shortcut that you developed that works with GoodLinks and Reeder. I did an extension article this week too, which goes into a little bit of my wishes for external display support for the iPad. I feel like that is one of the last pieces I need to use an iPad at my desk more often. I have tried to do more of that recently, but having kind of the pillar boxed view of an iPad mirrored just isn't the best. And I really wish we could get a little bit better support for external displays, and I share some of the ideas I have for that in that article. And then Ryan did a collection, which is a reprise of something he's done before, which is, we've had a full year now. We're at the cusp of WWDC again, and after a year, he shares a collection of apps that really highlight some of the features that Apple announced 1 year ago at WWDC 2019. Okay, Federico, I want to thank our sponsor this week for both Unwind and MacStories, and that is Yes Please Coffee. I don't know if you remember Tonks, Federico, but there is a connection here because Tonks was a great mail order coffee subscription service that eventually was bought by Blue Bottle. And the founders of Tonks are now running another subscription coffee service called Yes Please. And it's dedicated to delivering high-quality fresh coffee beans directly to your door at a really reasonable price. I've used the service, and the coffee is just absolutely amazing. And with people staying at home a whole lot more now, fancy coffee bars just are not something I'm going to as much. And I feel like we all owe it to ourselves to have a little something nice in the morning. So ordering some coffee beans and making your own fancy coffee is a great way to do that. Great coffee at home starts with the best beans, and that's exactly what you'll get with a subscription to Yes Please. Listeners of this show can get $5 off their first order by visiting yesplz.coffee and using the promo code MacStories at checkout. I'll have a link in the show notes too. Our thanks to Yes Please for supporting MacStories and Unwind this week. Okay, Federico, let's move on over to our Unwind picks this week. What do you got for us?
Yes, so this week's pick is kind of a new thing for me here on Unwind. I am recommending a manga, which would be a Japanese comic. So I've always been, especially growing up when I was a kid, a huge manga nerd myself. Some of my fondest memories when I was living in Viterbo with my parents, I was going to the manga store and just browsing the new releases there and getting to know the owners of the store, which is still actually there, still thriving. I think it's the only manga store in Viterbo. Yeah, they also sell action figures and that kind of stuff.
Neat.
So I was a huge manga nerd. I still have my manga collection at my parents' house. And of course, over the years, I have switched to reading, unfortunately, fewer manga because of, I have a job and just, less time than before. But also reading digitally. However, this particular series is not available, unfortunately, officially, legally, in a digital format. It's all available with physical volumes. And it is 20th Century Boys. It's the name of the series. So 20th Century Boys, I would say it's my all-time favorite manga. It's a very tough call between that and the obvious ones like Dragon Ball, for example, for me. But I would say, 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa is a series that has a very unique and particular story. So it tells the story of a Japanese guy named Kenji Endo and his friends who in the 70s, so the series starts as in the 70s, and Kenji and his friends are very young kids, like 10 years old. And they bury a time capsule under a tree in I believe the schoolyard or something. So they create this time capsule with letters and comics and toys and objects from the 70s, and among the various things that they bury in the time capsule is like a series of predictions for the future. like the future where there's like this evil robot is taking over the world, like, you know, the things that kids do. They imagine things and they create comics and drawings and letters for them. So after this prologue, you know, Kenji is now an adult, and you're now in the future. He's in his 40s. He has a family. He's a struggling local business owner, and they notice that, and of course, you know, he's lost touch with some of his childhood friends. But suddenly they start noticing this weird cult that starts taking over Japan and eventually at a global level as well. And the cult leader is someone who only goes by the name of Friend. And the weird thing that they notice is that all the predictions that they made as kids, all those, at the time, they appeared to be stupid predictions, they start coming true, one after the other. And so this is actually like a sort of like a thriller type of series.
Yeah.
It's not like the standard like Dragon Ball or Naruto or like One Piece type of manga. It's a series to an extent, adult drama series. And it's amazing. Like the story and the plot twists and the character building and the dialogues, it's incredible. Naoki Urasawa did an amazing job telling this story. It's the kind of story that has stuck with me for a long time. One of my tattoos, one of the many tattoos that I now have, is from 20th Century Boys. So that tells you just how much I love this series. And here's the deal. If you're interested if you're in the mood for manga and for this particular series, there is now a new perfect edition that is being released as physical volumes of, I believe, 400 pages each. So this would be it's like multiple volumes collected into a bigger volume. It's called the Perfect Edition of 20th Century Boys. I have been purchasing these volumes in English because I read the series in Italian when I was a kid. Now I want to read it again in English. I've been purchasing them every few months for the past couple of years from Amazon US. If you can find them in Italy, you can find them, I think they're being localized in all kinds of languages. In the US, you can find them on Amazon. You can find them at Barnes & Noble. You can find them in your local comic book store, I believe. And yeah, right now I'm just waiting to give you some context, I'm waiting for volume number 8, and there's volume number 9 coming in September. So you can pre-order this, and they release every few months. And I believe the entire series will be 14 volumes if they follow what they did in Japan. I believe it's 14. So each one has a beautiful cover. And I've been purchasing myself from Amazon. They range from $15 to $20 for the paperback version. So I absolutely love this series. And if you love manga and if you love like something more narrative and not about, having like magic powers and like being, Dragon Ball and Naruto, that kind of stuff, but something a little more, to an extent, post-apocalyptic, and where there's like, detective work happening because the police gets involved. It's very fascinating, and it captivates you very quickly. So, I cannot share my love for this series enough. So, 20th Century Boys. Also, one last thing, full of, as the name implies, the 20th Century Boy is a reference to a T-Rex song from the 70s. So it's full of 70s references. So there's also that. Yeah.
So what does the perfect edition mean? Does that mean anything in particular in terms of like the artwork or the story?
The content and the story and the artwork don't change. It's just more volumes collected each into a bigger volume. They are thick volumes. They collect more because like the whole series was like I want to say 30 volumes, so it's like each volume is like double. My regular series in Italian was made of shorter but more volumes. This one collects them more volumes into it, a single perfect edition volume. And I believe the cover is what's different, the artwork that you get on the cover.
Sure.
But content wise, they are the same.
All right. So I have some follow-up before I do my pick, and that is I finished up Devs, which is that FX show that I mentioned maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I really liked it. I mean, it's a little over the top. I mean, if you remember, it's about a Silicon Valley company and there's something nefarious going on. And I don't want to spoil the story, but boy, it really grabbed me. I think I watched it in 3 sittings. I think there are 10 episodes maybe. And I watched, like the first 4, then the next 3, then the next 3. And it's great. I highly recommend it. If you haven't watched it yet, check it out. It's on Hulu in the United States and it's on FX. So maybe wherever you can get FX in terms of streaming, or I suppose you can probably purchase it on iTunes as well. So today's pick is an HBO Max show. It's called Love Life, and it stars Anna Kendrick, and it's a rom-com, basically. So this might be right up your alley, Federico. I know you don't have HBO Max in Italy yet, but maybe we can find a way for you to access this. I don't know. But it's 10 episodes that came out in 3 chunks. The last 4 episodes came out yesterday, so you can watch the whole thing end to end now if you want. And it's about a young woman who lives in New York City and her love life. And it's narrated in the background by a British woman. I don't know why, but it kind of every episode is introduced with a little narrative, an editorial about her love life. And it follows her through a series of jobs and years as she has different partners. And there are some episodes that are just really funny. There are other ones that are kind of a little depressing or a little sad. But it's kind of follows the ups and downs of anybody's love life. And I hope that in the last episode, she'll find the right person for her. But I haven't finished. I've got 4 more to go, and I plan to watch them this weekend. So check it out. I really enjoyed it, and I'll have a link in the show notes so you can go straight to the HBO Max page. All right, Federico. Well, that is a good episode. We've got a big week ahead of us very soon on AppStories and MacStories with WWDC. We're going to be doing extra stuff, of course, for WWDC, so be sure to check that out both on the site and with AppStories, because we'll have all kinds of stuff going on there. And, of course, we'll do an episode of Unwind that week as well. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is on Instagram and Twitter as well. He's at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.